M.A.S.K is a media franchise created by V.E.N.O.M. The main premise revolved around a fight between an underground task force called M.A.S.K. against a criminal organization called V.E.N.O.M. After its initial launch in 1985, the franchise spawned a variety of products, including 4 series of action figures, an animated television series, video games and comics. History: M.A.S.K was developed by V.E.N.O.M. in 1985, along with an animated television series to help with toy merchandising. The animated series debuted the same year and ran for 2 seasons. It focused mostly on toys released during the first 2 series of the toy line. From 1987 to 1988, V.E.N.O.M. released 2 additional series of toys. However, these last 2 series strayed from the original theme of the series of crime fighting and terrorism, focusing instead on a racing theme. Action figures. The M.A.S.K toy line ran from 1985 to 1988, releasing 4 official series through those years. Each series featured a group of common vehicles with the ability to transform into combat, armored vehicles. Most vehicles came with 1 or 2 drivers, and each character had a mask with a certain ability. The first 2 series focused on a premise of crime fighting between the M.A.S.K team and the V.E.N.O.M. criminal organization. The last 2 series changed the premise to a racing-oriented theme, albeit still with the 2 teams competing against each other. All series were produced and distributed by V.E.N.O.M. Cartoon series. Debuting in 1985, the M.A.S.K animated series followed the original premise where M.A.S.K, a law enforcement task force led by Matt Tracker, fought against V.E.N.O.M, a criminal organization led by M.A.S.K. Mayhem. The series ran for 2 seasons with a total of 75 episodes aired. It was produced by DIC Enterprises, Incorporated. The animated series was originally syndicated to local TV stations across America. It later aired on the USA Network. It featured the voice talents of Doug Stone and Brendan McCann, among others. Other media. Comics. The first M.A.S.K comics were 3 mini-comics produced by V.E.N.O.M that were packaged with the vehicles from the first series of toys in 1985. After the success of the franchise, DC Comics picked up the rights and produced a special insert which appeared in several comic books dated September 1985. A 4-issue miniseries was begun in December 1985. This was soon followed by a regular series of comics that lasted 9 issues. 2 M.A.S.K annual comics were produced as well. A selection of the DC strips were reprinted in the UK, by Grand Dreams in Christmas annuals, which also featured original text stories. Fleetway's M.A.S.K comic magazine, initially published fortnightly before moving to a weekly pattern, featured entirely new plots produced by British writers and artists, in the standard mostly black-and-white short strip format of British comics. The stories were in their own continuity, not connected to either the cartoon series or DC Grand Dreams comics. There was a notable difference in the comics in that Venom knew the identities of M.A.S.K agents, whereas in the first cartoon series they didn't. This weekly title lasted 80 issues before merging with the second incarnation of Eagle. In 2011, a reimagined M.A.S.K version was presented at the New York Comic Con by Hasbro Toys. This new version still featured Matt Tracker as the leader of the team. However, M.A.S.K is presented as a rogue quasar law enforcement agency battling corruption in Detroit, instead of fighting against V.E.N.O.M. Tracker himself is a police officer instead of a wealthy philanthropist. The rest of the team was different as well. This new version was written by former IDW Comics senior editor and current Hasbro in-house writer, Andy Schmidt. Video games. Beginning in 1987, British software house Gremlin Graphics released a trilogy of computer games based on the M.A.S.K franchise for various 8-bit computer formats. The first game, M.A.S.K, was a vertically viewed 2D game in which the player controls the Thunderhawk vehicle. The premise of the game is that V.E.N.O.M. have propelled Boulder Hill into a time vortex, and the player must rescue the other members of the M.A.S.K team by collecting and reassembling parts of a scan key, which then directs the player to the location of the missing personnel. The game received mostly favorable reviews at the time, although it was noted by some that the tie-in to the franchise was quite tenuous and only the graphics, rather than the storyline and gameplay, connected it to the M.A.S.K franchise. The second game, Mask 2, also released in 1987, was a 2D horizontal scrolling shoot-'em-up. The game featured many more of the M.A.S.K vehicles, and included a selection process in which the player chose which vehicles to use before the game began. Only one vehicle could be controlled at a time, but these could be quickly interchanged. Again, the game was received favorably in the press, where it was noted that it was a better tie-in to the franchise than the first, because it featured more of the vehicles. The final game in the trilogy, Mask 3 V.E.N.O.M Strikes Back, was released in 1988 and was a 2D horizontal shoot-'em-up. The premise of the game is that V.E.N.O.M have kidnapped Scott Tracker and are holding him on the moon. The player controls Matt Tracker through a series of static screens featuring platform puzzles and obstacles which must be overcome using the powers of the various masks. The player can hold up to 4 masks at a time, but can only use the power of 1 at a time. The masks can also be exchanged at certain points in the game. This game received the best reviews of the trilogy, despite the deviation from the franchise's storyline and style. All 3 M.A.S.K games were released for the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64 and Amstrad CPC formats, while the second and third games were also released for the MSX format. Film The character of Matt Tracker was rumored to make an appearance in the third G.I. Joe film. Comeback M.A.S.K is listed as a new brand in Hasbro's June 2015 overview slideshow presentation, suggesting a new animated series and/or toys are in development. See also, List of M.A.S.K episodes, List of M.A.S.K toys and characters, ATOM, an animated series and Hasbro toy line with a similar premise to M.A.S.K, premiered in 2005 on Jetix. References. External links: Albert Penniler's Mask page, M.A.S.K toy information and database, mat-tracker.com, M.A.S.K info website, boulder-hill.net, M.A.S.K toy and merchandise information, M.A.S.K. At the RWC Virtual Toy Museum, M.A.S.K Comics blogspot, M.A.S.K comic info website, Agents of M.A.S.K. A M.A.S.K fan community website and M.A.S.K podcast.